Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and continuing on with Sequel Movie Week. And yes, that's right, the next film sequel that I'm going to be reviewing. However, I am not reviewing this alone, because joining me is one of my good friends and bros, Anchorman.
Hello?
Yes. And if it's not obvious, with me and him, and with what we're reviewing, and seeing as how we did review the first film, so of course, makes absolute sense for me and him to review this, and not to mention, since both me and Anchorman, we are fans and admirers of Seth MacFarlane, his work, from, the realm of animation, live action, and such, and, yeah. So that's right. The second to last film sequel that me and Anchorman are reviewing, a part of the Film Sequel Week, Sequel Movie Week. Off to a great start. That's right. And not to mention that this film sequel is celebrating its anniversary. Yes, me and Anchorman are finally reviewing from 2015, Ted 2. Yes. Ted 2, man, I gotta tell you, because, Ted 2, okay, first off, it may not be the best, piece of Ted material and such. Well, I don't know, because, it's not to say that, and I guess from what I've seen, it wasn't really god-awful, but nowhere near as good as, say, the first one, especially since, Seth's previous film that he directed a year before Ted 2, well, sadly, that didn't really do good as well, and that, of course, being A Million Ways to Die in the West, which, both me and Anchorman, we did review if you want to go check it out, but, yeah. But, the first things we have to say about Ted 2, Anchorman, why don't we start with you? What are the first things you have to say about, Ted 2?
I think it's a good sequel. Not as good as the first one, but I think there was a lot more going on this sequel. And I like how it explores Ted a lot more as a character, since the last movie was more about John and his story. This time they could just focus on Ted.
Yeah. I mean, the first Ted film, of course, it's Ted's movie, so, sure, there was a lot centering on Johnny, but still, of course, a lot centering on Ted, just, because, again, him being the titled character, but yeah. And anything else you have to say about Ted 2, your first thoughts and such?
I don't really get the hate towards this movie. Like I said, it's not as good as the first one, but I still enjoyed it quite a lot.
Okay, good. All right, well, and as for me, because, I'm, of course, on the same page as you, Anchorman, and if any of you would be on the same page, too, where, yes, again, as I first said, and like you said, too, Anchorman, that it's not as good as the first Ted film, but that's not to say it's bad at all, god-awful. I enjoy it, and I don't know, because I know I talked about this with you before, Anchorman, that, I don't know, because even after doing another rewatch of this, I don't know, because, look, of course, if you've seen me and Anchorman, our review of the first Ted film, of course, that we both had enjoyed the first one, but I just don't know, because, usually for me, I like movie number 2s, and I guess, I don't know, I hate to be saying this, but I really feel as though that I enjoyed Ted 2 a lot more. Again, not to say I don't enjoy the first Ted film. I want to make that clear, okay? Very clear, and just bear with me, guys. But, and like with what Anchorman said, Ted 2, although the first, besides the first one, it does focus on Ted, but also on Johnny. This, focusing a lot more on Ted, and this, and because the fact that so much is going on with the character of Ted, because having gotten married, but then at some point, like, say, when he and his now wife trying to make a baby, but they are having no progress on that, but to make things even more complicated, Ted's life just falling apart, literally, not being referred to as a citizen, and being referred to as property and so on. Jeez. And, I think that what happens in Ted 2 is pretty well done. The subject and such that Ted's going through, not being treated as a citizen, not being labeled as a citizen, because, there's no denying, because, he is a stuffed plush teddy bear that came from Mattel, technically, and, because him still being property. But with what Ted, Johnny, and the others, they tried to do to, win the case that, he is a citizen in Boston, Massachusetts, yeah. And the journey that that takes Ted and Johnny throughout this film, yeah. And I don't know, because, with what goes on in Ted 2, it seems like, yeah, it's good, but I don't know. Maybe if it was on the same level as, like, what was brought to the first Ted film, because the quality and strength of the story and such. But, Ted 2 is what it is, but just, for me, because having done a good chunk of rewatches of this, I really enjoyed Ted 2, and again, I want to say it's probably my favorite Ted film, but, still. I think that, with Ted 2, with what it has to offer with its storytelling, also the funny moments and emotional moments, because, yeah, sometimes Seth MacFarlane is quite good at delivering some hard-hitting moments in what he's done, because we know the fact that, yeah, what he's done with the shows and movies are full-blown comedies, but at the same time, there are moments where they have heart and so on. And yeah, the Ted films having that too. And some funny references here and there that just, all that happens in Ted 2 and with the cameos and whom does come back from the first Ted film. Just overall, Ted 2 for me, I really enjoy it. Okay. So, now with what me and Anchorman had to say, our first thoughts and such, with that out of the way, now, as always, for me, read the description / the story. Life has changed drastically for the Thunder Buddies, John, now a bachelor, and best pal, Ted, now married to the woman of his dreams. Problems arise when the couple decide to adopt a child, but the law declares Ted to be property and not a person. Angry and dejected, the lovably foul-mouthed teddy bear must now seek legal help from a young lawyer and a legendary civil rights attorney to get the justice he deserves. Okay, now, so with the description / the story out of the way, now let's dive into the film. The film itself, break it down. Well, yeah, because what we first see is, that Ted and his girlfriend, now wife, Tammy Lynn, are getting hitched, getting married and such. And with some opening narration from Patrick Stewart once again, is pretty funny. And yeah, seeing Ted and Tammy getting married by Flash Gordon himself, Sam Jones, whom was previously in the first Ted film. It's nice to see that, he's the one that's marrying Ted and Tammy. And of course, Johnny being there, and Johnny, once again, being played by Mark Wahlberg. And yeah, the voice of Ted, of course, being Seth MacFarlane, and Tammy, once again, being played by Jessica Barth. And yeah, so they've gotten married, and the sequence where they're having the party, the aftermath of getting married, and we learn that, unfortunately, 6 months ago, John and his now ex-wife, Mila Kunis, her character, they unfortunately got divorced. And about that, because, Anchorman, let's start with you, because how do you feel about that? Because the fact that John is now divorced, and the fact that Mila Kunis is, not present for Ted 2 and such, and how it was written for Ted 2. How do you feel about that?
I wasn't really too big fan of this decision because I felt the connection a little bit with Mark and Mila Kunis. It's just disappointing that they basically written her out of the movie. But I do like Amanda Steinfeld's character.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really have a problem with her being the love interest to John. But I don't know. It kind of just made it feel the first movie was kind of pointless. The love story, like how they made it a big deal.
Exactly.
And the second one, they're like, let's just change it.
Yeah, you have a good point right there. Because, yeah, you took some of the words right out of my mouth. Because, pointless. Because that whole love story going on between them in the first movie, as of now, and with Ted 2, just seemed pointless. Like, that was a waste and such. I mean, look.
That's probably my only issue with the movie.
Yeah, but also the reason being why Mila Kunis was not able to, it's not like she didn't want to come back, she would have, but the problem was, and I assume because she was taking a break from acting besides doing voice work, obviously, because of Family Guy, because she was pregnant and she couldn't participate to come back for the sequel. I mean, that's understandable, but still, and another way to put it just seemed weak. It seemed weak for how it was done in Ted 2, that they got divorced. There was at one point an original point where Mila Kunis' character would have died off screen, but they felt that would have been too depressing. I mean, okay, so my thoughts on that, okay, yeah, I mean it's depressing, but honestly, that could have worked still. But just, I mean, what do you think on that? Now that I bring it up,
I'm really sure about them killing her off. I'm not really a fan of the idea of characters being written off by just being killed off screen.
Yeah.
I'm not really a fan of that, but if they could make something work, I believe they could have found a way to have her in the story or not.
True, yeah. Or unless they could have maybe possibly hold production of Ted 2 to wait for Mila, but I guess, they just weren't able to. They weren't able to do that kind of thing. They just had to get the movie done, so yeah. But like you said, yeah, when a new face came in, when we get to her, we'll talk about her. Yeah, she wasn't that bad at all. Besides, this isn't the first time that Whom makes her debut in Ted 2. This is the first time she's worked with Seth MacFarlane and so on. But again, until we get to her. But with that out of the way, because when it would be brought up a couple of more times with what Johnny's going through, having been divorced and now single and lonely, with that, because, with the wedding party still going pretty well, and Ted, he tries to cheer up Johnny some, and being a good friend, of course, he is to Johnny. But also another returning face whom we saw in the first Ted film is good old Patrick Warburton as Guy, and he has a new boyfriend, which being Rick, being played by Mr. Worf himself, Michael Dorn, and God, the chemistry between Patrick Warburton and Michael Dorn playing a gay couple, it's funny. And this is the first time that, Guy has brought Rick with him, and the first time that, say, Ted and Johnny are meeting Rick and so on. And also because, to mention the unrated cut of Ted 2, because, I've most notably have watched that, and, have you, what about you, Anchorman? You've watched the unrated cut, I presume?
That was the one I was watching last night on my rewatch.
Good. So, and that's what I did, that's what I watched as well, because, because if maybe I've established this before, because for me, I sometimes really enjoy, when it comes to movies that have extended / director's cuts, I always love watching those. Best example, the first 2 Harry Potter films, whenever I would watch those 2, I'd always watch the extended version. Even say, because on TV, they would always play the director's cut of the first two Harry Potter films. But that being an example, and I also, of course, enjoy another good example, like the director's cut of Rango, because, well, the ending continues, but alright, anyway, so, yeah, with the underrated cut of Ted 2, I mean, it's pretty funny, and the more we get in Ted 2, and I think, because even if, like, they are really necessary or not, they seem acceptable, and maybe, like, establishing some things, and, like, some stuff that we didn't see in the theatrical version, but still. And also, for our review of A Million Ways to Die in the West, me and Anchorman, because most notably watching the extended cut, so, yeah. But anyway, so again, with the wedding party going on, and then, like, the opening credits begin where, because, there's a dance number, and also, like, Seth MacFarlane is so great, like, in anything that he's done, like, the way that the music and score is, like, say, if it's Family Guy or the Ted films, having, like, that, say, 30s, 40s, 50s vibe, you get my point, just, that's great, and because definitely, for the opening credits, and with this dance number and Ted being there, it definitely feels like it, but and coming back to you, Anchorman, because anything you got to say, first off, with the opening to the film and with Ted's marriage, and from there on and up to the opening credits?
I do like the opening marriage for Ted. I especially like the opening sequence where he's dancing, and then there's like a bunch of music playing, and we see the title credits, so I love that scene.
Yeah. Okay. Well, after that, 1 year passes, and marriage life for Ted and Tammy. Well, not exactly like as I guess that they were hoping. Well, I mean, because this being, for any couple, because, in reality, because of paying the bills and with, how much money Tammy has spent and so on, because they're acting like that couple and just, like, making, like, threats and such to each other, like, I should have married so-and-so, and just, golly. Even when, like, say, rowdy neighbors are shouting at them and Ted just, Then, like, say, a moment where Ted and Johnny are at a bar, and still, even after 1 year, Johnny's still feeling lonely and miserable, and even when, like, say, there are a few times where girls try to approach Johnny and such. In fact, the bartender, gave Johnny, an address and even her number to where she was going to be going, and even Ted can sense the fact that because this bartender chick was wanting to bang with Johnny and such, but but again, because with how miserable Johnny feels, and because totally just blindsided, not offering to hook up with a chick and such, just, in fact, actually, because, like, I seem to recall, because Ted was kind of in on it, with the bartender, because, making a move on Johnny. That was funny. By the way, because, some of Allison, because that's the name of the bartender, Allison, and, Allison being played by Jessica Cesar, if I'm even saying her last name right, who would work with Seth MacFarlane once again, making her debut as the new crew member of the Orville. Yes, so that being her. Before the Orville, she did something else with Seth MacFarlane, which being Ted 2. And by the way, because, like, those Boston neighbors, well, and that were getting into an argument with Ted, you shut the F up, and so on, like, William Extrafaris, I'm even saying that right, and Alatina Lester, but anyway, so, and, Ted is like, and then they're like, say, Ted asks the bartender, Allison, like, for another beer, but telling her that she can't, and because they're closing up, but Ted making it clear that he's been coming to this bar since the 90s. And there's a picture that proves so. The getup that Ted has that he had on in the 90s is funny. And making a deal with Allison, like, I won't say a word about Jay Leno trying to hook up with, hooking up with a guy in a men's room and such. Because, okay, apparently in the Ted franchise, Jay Leno is gay. Yeah, and literally, because, yeah, Jay Leno making a quick cameo and such when he exits the men's restroom. But, yeah, so then, like, yeah, Ted, as well as Tammy, because work life for them, well, they happen to both work at this grocery store, and this being a great cameo coming up here, because, yeah, Liam Neeson making a cameo in Ted 2, and he's basically purchasing/buying a box of Trix cereal, and the conversation and dialogue between Neeson and Ted is funny, and, because Liam's character asking Ted if, wondering if the Trix cereal is exclusive for children, but, Ted making it clear that they just say that in the commercials, of course, so it doesn't matter if even if, like, say, an adult is having Trix cereal, and, Neeson's, stating that, he won't be followed, like telling and asking Ted, so I won't be followed, and just, I'm taking it back with me to my apartment and such, just, yeah, and I won't forget this moment, and thanking Ted, and because Ted assured him, God. But yeah, we'll come to you, yeah, because Liam Neeson, he's credited as just the customer. Yeah, that's all he has to be credited for, just like, and his character, the customer. But coming back to you, Anchorman, because with where we're up to now, and what you've got to say this time, and of course, including the Liam Neeson's cameo.
I do like the Liam Neeson cameo. That's probably one of the best scenes in this movie. I just love how serious he is.
Yeah.
Just like most roles Liam Neeson plays, and I just love the conversation he has with Ted.
Yep. And in that deep voice he has, and being very straight, and yeah, because Liam Neeson being no stranger to comedy, and the fact that most of the time he is playing straight. So, and seeing as how that, yeah, Liam Neeson had worked with McFarlane previously in A Million Ways to Die in the West, yeah, as the main antagonist. And by the way, because I don't know about you, Anchorman, because if you happen to by any chance listen to the commentary for Ted 2, because most notably from the Ted 2 commentary, McFarlane, one of the other crew members of Ted 2, as well as Jessica Barth, who plays Tammy Lynn, being a part of the commentary. And when it comes to Liam Neeson's cameo, they go into this conversation about, about how it would be really cool to see Liam Neeson in a Naked Gun movie. So, yeah, and the fact that it exists now, this all began with the Ted 2 commentary. And fast forward 10 years later, and with that existing. So, that's amazing. And of course, rightfully so, Seth MacFarlane being involved in the Naked Gun film with Liam Neeson. But I just, I thought I'd point that out, and I'm sure you guys would know this definitely, yeah. So, after that moment with Neeson, well, yeah, still, things are not looking good for poor Ted and Tammy. But then, yeah, because fellow grocery store employee Joy, being played by Coquet Brown, if I'm even getting her first name right, again, you know me sometimes, brings up to Ted about maybe him and Tammy should have a baby. Even pointing out, oh my gosh, because I can't believe, because how she refers to this couple who has a child, just if you know, and you too, Anchorman, but just, yeah, and even Ted's comment on that is funny, because, yeah, because the fact that, what she describes to Ted is that by having a child, it'll make them happy, and so on. And yeah, thus, Ted taking advice from Joy, and when Ted tries to talk things out with Tammy, and yeah, even apologizing with what happened when, yeah, because it got heated between them during dinner, and, well, Ted, suggesting to Tammy that, yeah, they should make a baby. And Tammy, she's happy about this, and, well, apparently they proceed on making a baby, literally at work in the back of the grocery store, and their boss catching them do this, and it's pretty funny. And Yeah, because Frank, that's him. Yeah, once again being played by Bill Smith Travick, if I'm saying his last name right. Yeah, catching them in the act, and just like in the first Ted film, because he compliments Ted on what happened, and even is gonna plan on naming the grocery store after Ted. Okay, but yeah, the problem is, with them trying to make a baby, it's not going too well. I mean, besides, Ted is a teddy bear, so, yeah. And then, when bringing this up to Johnny about, he and Tammy going to have a baby, Johnny is happy about this, and, still, Johnny feeling depressed and still lonely and such. Then it comes to say, God, because Ted and Tammy are having no luck with trying to make a baby, well, then it comes to say, sperm donations and such, getting sperm and such, and, they first consider, Sam Jones. Maybe Sam Jones could help out with Ted and Tammy's situation, and, but even before, they go to Sam's house, Ted was having trouble trying to contact Sam on his phone since the Wi-Fi/signal in John's apartment is not really good. So thus, he borrows Johnny's laptop, but then finds something horrific on Johnny's laptop, having a list of porn and so on, and Johnny is happy that Ted, caught him, and because, and Johnny knows that, this is torture for Johnny, and he has to wake up and, find somebody out there, and Johnny suggests on deleting all of that off his laptop, but Ted, no. He tells Johnny that they have to destroy the laptop, and they do so, smashing it with hammers, but that's not it. They have to put it in a bag, all the pieces of the laptop, and basically bury it in the ocean. And that's literally what they do. They're in a boat, and they have their scuba gear, and thus that's what they do. And even Ted establishing that every so often, in the next 3 months or so, they would check on it, and so, oh God. Okay, but coming back to you, Anchorman, because where I'm at now, what do you have to say this time?
The scene at the grocery store where Ted decides to have a baby and then he gets in trouble, I thought that was funny. And the manager talking to him about it and being impressed by it was hilarious.
Yes.
And then they just go after him.
Mm-hmm.
The lady who said the N-word, I thought that. I did not expect to see that in the movie at all.
Well, yeah, and again, Ted's comment on what Joy said, but go ahead.
Yeah. The scene where Ted finds Johnny's porn, that scene was probably the best scene. And it's just so random. They go from finding it, smashing the laptop, and then having to bury it, and decide to check on it every few months. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the way Ted yells, "What the F," was hilarious.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's probably the most funniest I've ever seen someone yelled at.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so with that, so, again, and once, they've taken care of the whole thing with the laptop, then, they make they pay a visit to Sam Jones, but unfortunately, Sam's not able to help them, because, his sperm count is low, and the fact that he was doing so much in the 80s and such, just, And by the way, because another mentioning of the commentary for Ted 2, because they pointed this out. Actually, two things. Now that I remember, good thing. Where, when the scene where Ted talks with Tammy about, making a baby and such, unbeknownst to Jessica, because Seth pointed this out, because there's one shot where Jessica has a piece of tape on one of her arms, but then, saying the next shot of Tammy, it's gone. Then, for Sam Jones, Seth pointed this out because, because Sam this happened with Sam when they were filming his shots, when the sequence where Johnny and Ted meet with Sam, if he can help them out with the sperm donation, Sam had a Band-Aid while they were filming that. I guess he cut himself, but yeah. There's no big deal with that, because, but yeah, just thought I'd mention that, so again, yeah, they're unable to get help from Sam Jones, and they're a bit upset with Sam, even, Johnny accidentally threw a rock at Sam's car, golly, and they make a run for it. So, what next? And how are they supposed to, manage to get a sperm donation or something? Well, they then go to Tom Brady, and they pretend to be these Johnny most notably fixing the heat system and such to Tom Brady's house, that kind of thing. And yeah, Tom Brady himself making an appearance in this, and yeah, and it's so funny because with what Johnny does, snipping off the wires and such, and because of Johnny's heat system in his house, and then later that evening they sneak into his house while Tom is sleeping to try to get this. So funny. And even Ted was in this yellow raincoat getup because golly. And when they pull the sheets, oh, like a heavenly light, but of course Tom waking up and just freaked out by what the heck's going on, and they make a run for it. And I don't know, because probably this would occur to some people while watching Ted 2, and then when it's finally brought up, because why didn't Ted all this time, why didn't he go to Johnny, ask him to help out? Well, and yeah, when Johnny asks Ted, and Ted explaining, and it's understandable because Ted can see how upset Johnny was for a while, and, Johnny was on Ted's mind, was the first one to be on his mind, but again, he just didn't know, and because with how upset Johnny was. But Johnny assuring Ted that he's more than happy to help. So, yeah. So thus, they go to an actual, doctor's office, sperm donation such, where, yeah, Johnny will do his business, and so on. But, yeah. Okay, coming back to you, Anchorman, because what we're up to now, because, yeah, with Sam Jones, Tom Brady, and what they do next, what do you got to say?
I thought it was funny when Ted accidentally destroys Sam Jones's car, and then they flee the scene.
I literally said that was Johnny who accidentally destroyed Sam's car.
Oh, okay.
You're good.
But, I thought the whole Tom Brady plot was hilarious. I love Ted's raincoat outfit. I thought that was adorable.
Yeah.
I love the scene where Ted goes, "Piss off, I don't want any jizz on me." I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, I can understand his point. It's just you never know, and with what Ted said, yeah, he might, it's a good point, but yeah. Okay, and the sequence where, Johnny's gonna do his business with the sperm donation and such, and, even Johnny's trying to make a move on this one nurse, and, it's pretty funny. Yeah, and the female nurse being played by Maggie Gia, if I'm getting the last name right specifically. And there's also Dr. Ed Danzer, whom encounters and interacts with Ted, and, well, the doctor knowing whom Ted is. And Dr. Ed Dasner being played by Sebastian Arkelis. I think, yeah, I did get that right. So, yeah. Yeah, just that sequence that's going on with Johnny doing his business, and which, he succeeded, and, and then what happens next, and coming back to you, Anchorman, because anything you've got to say on that whole sequence?
Here's a fun fact: the doctor, the one doctor, he was actually in the TMNT special Turtles Forever. This is his small role before he joined Ted 2. I thought I would just name that random fact.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
And I think the best scene in the doctor's office is, I don't know if you got into it yet, but the scene where they accidentally spill all the sperm all over Johnny. I thought that scene was hilarious.
Yeah, I was about to say, you can go in, you can take it from here on that, because it is, of course, it's hilarious.
They try to go when Ted is showing all this how the sperm works. Johnny tries to have Ted look at it, but then they accidentally drop it, and then they try to scoop it up, but then Johnny accidentally knocks down a whole tray of them, and it just splats all over him.
Yeah, golly.
And then Ted tries to take a picture of him.
Yep.
For Facebook. And then, it's revealed that it's just all anti-sperm.
Exactly. And even Ted making a Kardashian joke, because, golly. But, yeah, overall, that didn't go as planned. It would have, but, yeah, in fact, because, when Johnny's showing, this is going to be your child, getting it towards Ted, but then, knocking over a cup down, and then from there on, just, golly, so funny. But, yeah. So, again, that didn't go as planned. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to Johnny and Ted, well, Donnie is back. Yep, remember Donnie from the first Ted film, whom tried to get his hands and capture Ted, Yeah, he's back. And just Donnie, because with what happened to, say, the kid, we know what happened to him and he became Taylor Lautner, but point being on Donnie, because, yeah, Donnie once again being played by Giovanni Ribisi, if I'm, getting his full name right, but we know who he is, and he's a great actor. Donnie, whom is now working as a janitor at Mattel, and he tries to do some interacting with, one of the main guys that is running Mattel, and that being Tom Jessup, I think I'm getting the last name right, and Tom Jessup being played by John Carroll Lynch, and the whole mentioning of, cakes and such, just, yeah. And, of course, Donnie, if it's obvious, and with his return, whatever he's gonna do, plotting his revenge and trying to get his hands back on Ted. Yeah. But, yeah, so with Donnie returning, coming back to Johnny and Ted, well, because still, they failed to accomplish on the whole sperm donation, and then it just starts to get worse, because, yeah, even when, say, Ted and Tammy, they meet with the fertility, if I'm saying that right, yeah, the fertility doctor, which being played by the Allstate guy, Dennis Hasbert. Yeah, it's not looking good for them because of, with the x-rays and such, the whole thing, just even Tammy's. Apparently the doctor, when looking at that, he vomited and such, but, yeah. And then when, say, they meet with someone else, because, yeah, the adoption agency, they tried to do that, because this time, because they're unable to make a baby, they'll instead do adopting. And when meeting with an adoption agent, which being played by Nana Visitor herself from Star Trek DS9, yep. And it's always great, because, whomever... anybody from Star Trek making an appearance in whatever it is, of Seth MacFarlane's, of course, most notably Patrick Stewart, but still. So it's really cool that Nana, makes a cameo in this. Unfortunately, yeah, they have no luck with the adoption thing as well, because the adoption agent makes it very clear that they are unable to adopt a baby, and especially, this is where it comes up, where, yeah, Ted not being referred to and labeled as a citizen, and him being property, and it just gets out of hand, because then he loses his job at the grocery store, and, will not receive anything else, just, yeah, poor Ted, because, yeah, this just came out of nowhere. And when everything was looking good, and the fact that it took 1 year for this to happen, and after Ted and Tammy got married, and that's another thing, their marriage has been labeled as anal, and golly. All right, but coming back to you, Anchorman, because where I'm up to now, I've talked about Donnie's return, and Ted's life so far falling apart. What do you have to say this time?
I think Donnie's return was wild. I wonder where Robert was until I realized he became Taylor Lautner.
Yep.
And Ted having Tammy Lynn not be able to get pregnant was sad. I thought the doctor guy, I knew he looked familiar until you told me who it was. the guy from Allstate. I was like, oh, that's him.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what he's that is what he's most known for. But he's done more than just that, of course. I mean, he is a fantastic actor. So yeah.
Yeah, and then like the stuff about Ted not being able to get his citizenship. I thought that was wild. It goes from one plot to the next, which is what Seth MacFarlane's mainly known for.
Yep.
Like Family Guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but and because and with Ted losing everything and the marriage between him and Tammy being taken away from them, but to Tammy and Ted, they don't care. They got married and they are still referring to themselves as husband and wife. And then a moment where Ted and Johnny talk about this, and then it occurs to them that maybe they can win this, like win the whole thing of Ted being referred to as a citizen and so on. Yeah, they just got to get a lawyer for this, and thus, making their way to court and try to win. So thus, when trying to find a good lawyer, well, because, they first meet with, someone that they talk to and whom they're going to find a good lawyer, and that was, I believe, because that was, because I already mentioned him and Carl Jackson, that's him. Carl Jackson being played by Jay Patterson, because they first meet with him and, whom they're going to find a lawyer, and, and they can be the clients of this lawyer, and that, of course, being enter Samantha, and being played by, and as we mentioned earlier, Amanda Seyfried, and, again, Amanda Seyfried being one of the new main characters of this, and if it's not obvious, when we first see her, that she would end up becoming the new love interest for Johnny, and also Amanda having worked with Seth MacFarlane previously in A Million Ways to Die in the West, Samantha right from the bat, because it doesn't take too long for Ted and Johnny to see and realize that, not only does she seem like a good lawyer for them, but, she's their kind of person, because, like Johnny and Ted, because we know how much they love to smoke pot and weed, well, so does Samantha. Yeah, I mean, all three of them, they click right away, so and, Samantha, whom has just started becoming a lawyer, and also we learn, and this is throughout most of the film, where, Ted and Johnny are surprised that she is not familiar with all that is in the nerd culture, from Star Wars, Star Trek, and even mistaking something for this and that, and, the fact that also she is, her last name being Jackson, because, Ted and Johnny having meeting her daddy, Carl Jackson, and even, because them commenting on her last name being, just she shares the last name as Samuel L. Jackson, and she has no idea who Samuel is. Golly. But at the same time, they hit it off pretty good, all three of them. Because, again, Samantha being the kind of person that Johnny and Ted are, and by the way, because moments where, Johnny and Ted get high are pretty funny, even when, say, they get high and they're, singing some lyrics to the Law and Order theme song. It's pretty funny. And just the movies and shows that they watch at times is funny. Even when, they watch a little bit of Roots and a few others, but just, and coming back to you, Anchorman, because what more do you have to say on the character of Samantha?
I enjoy her character overall. I mainly remember Amanda Seyfried from Mean Girls and A Million Ways to Die in the West. Mm-hmm. I think I saw her in A Million Ways to Die in the West after I watched Ted 2. Mm-hmm. And I do like the library sequence, like a reference to the Breakfast Club.
Mm-hmm. Because, the whole sequence with them at the library and the, basically best way to put at it for me is, them prepping up for, say, when it comes to the day, they go to court and such. And, like you said, some Breakfast Club references here and there, because they do some of the dance moves and doing some other stuff, spitballs and such. Just, it's pretty funny. And even, because, even, at one point, Johnny and Ted, they wrote penis on Samantha's forehead, or even like say when they're still smoking some pot and weed, and the song that plays during that montage of them in the library is funny, and even Samantha smoking out like this smoke that makes the word down. Just it's funny. But yeah, so, and to speed things up some, because then the big day comes where the court is in order, the court session such, and even like because hopefully they can succeed on this, but they like it's very tight, because with whom else is there, and another lawyer whom apparently has never lost a court case, and that being Shep Wild, and Shep Wild being played by Howard Stark himself, John Slattery, if I'm getting his last name right, and with no mustache. You'd think he would be sporting a mustache, but not all the time, of course, but still, so hopefully, maybe there's a chance that for new lawyer, timer, incomer and such as a lawyer, Samantha, maybe she can manage to take down Shep Wild, but we are about to find out. And the judge there being played by good old Ron Canada, and whom would work with Seth MacFarlane, even after, say, Ted 2, and that, of course, being in the Orville. He was one of the, admirals. So, with the court in order, and, from, say, Shep Wild to Samantha, what they have to say about Ted, and, if he's going to be a citizen, and he will get that and such, and, when, like, say, from Ted to Johnny, Tammy being questioned and such, and, things getting a bit heated, but, even, like, say, at times the judge, likes, some stuff that Ted and Johnny bring up, and sometimes allowing what they do, but still, even, like, at a certain point, it does get out of hand, and Ted just finds this all ridiculous, and, just like, I am a citizen, and just so on, but, and, he should keep his mouth shut, and, and then he whips out his iPhone playing Angry Birds, just, but, unfortunately, it didn't go that well. Unfortunately, the decision had been made that, the jury officially saying that, Ted not being a citizen, and, which is a shame. And coming back to Donnie, because he finally, even before, like, say, what then happened at court, Donnie once again had a talk with, the main guy of Mattel, about, Ted, and, well, Tom Jessup, already knowing about Ted's existence, but with what Donnie proposes to Tom about Ted, and by bringing him in, and because, the whole thing of Ted not being a citizen and being referred to as property, and if Ted is to lose this case, which sadly he does at one point, for a while, I should say, then they can bring in Ted, and what they can do with Ted, and this would, have Mattel have a span of Teds, and the fact that Donnie had always wanted someone like Ted. Just, And, Tom, he goes along with this, even, like, because, of course, with the mentioning that Donnie makes, like, how much money this would make for Mattel and such. Just, so Tom and Donnie, they team up and such, and from there on. And not to mention that Donnie had been quietly attending to the court session, in disguise. So he was in the back, so. Alright, but coming back to you, Anchorman, because where I'm up to now, with the whole court, and, with what Donnie is plotting, what do you have to say this time?
The court scenes went alright, but then I love the scene where, like, John yells at the prosecutor, telling him he wishes bird flu on his kids, calling him a loser. I thought that was funny.
That.
It was kind of like how he called Rex in the last movie. He says, I hope you get Lou Gehrig's disease or something. It was kind of like that scene.
And anything, because, with what Donnie is planning, and when he teams up with Tom at Mattel and such.
It's a wild scenario for Donnie, for sure. He even tries to, I think he tries to, cut open the bears. He
Yes.
tries to experiment on them earlier in the movie.
He did, yeah. Thank you for reminding me on that, because that's what he tried to do early on, but having no luck. But what he then plans to do, and when he, convinces Tom Jessup to go along with this, but yeah. Also, because after Ted lost the case, well, this, on the news worldwide, from, say, Fox News to Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel, and, of course, them appearing as themselves, and even, say, Saturday Night Live doing a skit on this, which is pretty funny. And, yeah, because, again, as mentioned, Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, and, some of the cast members from SNL doing a skit, and of course this being a part of the movie, from Kate McKinnon and Bobby Moynihan and Taron Killiam, and that was basically the opening skit, and Kate, portraying Samantha, saying that she's on her period, and, golly, and then, again, because that is the opening skit, and when, they shout, "Live from New York, it's Saturday night!" But, in fact, that was, that montage, when it was on the news, that was happening before, Ted lost the case. And, also, those art pics that we would see, because how it was described and depicted at the court session, for Ted, it's Yogi Bear. Golly. But, sadly, Ted has lost this case, but thankfully, something else is brought up, and Samantha suggests that maybe they should meet with this really great guy whom could possibly help with Ted's situation and with the whole citizenship, and he's really good at that. And that being a man by the name of Patrick McGuyan, if I'm even saying the last name right, but yeah. And then, because at Ted and Tammy's apartment, because, Samantha manages to make progress getting in touch with Patrick and such, and even when, say, Samantha, she did get to meet Tammy, and, the moments that happened between all four of them, and, and then when, say, Samantha and Johnny, they talk some more, and with another mention of Mila Kunis's character, Lori. Yes, Lori. And Johnny explaining to Samantha because, Lori wanted to make Johnny a different person and such, and, and he was trying his best to be a good man and husband to Lori, and they tried to work things out, and it seemed like they kind of made good progress, but eventually, in the end, it sadly didn't work, and, and even, some comments that Samantha makes to Johnny, a good point and such, and because, the whole, thing of, say, changing someone, in a relationship and making them better, just, But, just overall, things between Samantha and Johnny are going pretty good, and, how slowly but surely, they're getting there, a romance that builds between them. And then a moment between all four of them where, today's Tuesday, and every Tuesday, up on the balcony, the rooftop of their apartment building, they always throw apples at nighttime joggers. And, Samantha joining with them, and they do so, and that was pretty funny. But coming back to you, Anchorman, because where I'm up to now, because, what do you got to say this time?
The scene where they throw apples at the joggers, that scene was funny. It would later be used in the Ted series where they throw eggs at trick-or-treaters.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because, we've heard that before, throwing eggs at, are on Halloween, so, but, and anything to say, because, because what's your comment on, say, the montage that we get where, because this makes worldwide news with the court case and, from, say, Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, Fox News, SNL. What about that?
I thought the SNL skit was funny. It would have been funnier if Kenan Thompson played the bear version of Ted, but whoever the actor was who played Ted, he was still funny.
Yeah, Bobby. Yeah, that was Bobby. Yeah, he was good. And anything, because, like, like the talk, because, it's a very serious moment where, because a serious subject, because with another mentioning of Lori and, Johnny sharing with Samantha about what it was like with him and Lori, and, for 6 years, like, they had been married and such, and, I seem to recall, like, I think, but, number 6, because he had been divorced for 6 months. But my point being is that, like, that talk that Johnny and Samantha have, and about Lori and what Samantha has to say. Just, anything you've got to say on that, too?
It was wild the way they broke up, but I guess they had to find a way to make it make sense by having it be done that way.
Yeah, true. And when, Johnny shares this with Samantha, but, just besides that, still, it's still a shame that, we didn't have Lori come back, and again, to me, it just, felt weak with how it was established, but at the same time, when Lori is brought up again, and Johnny sharing this with Samantha, I think it manages to patch things up with Lori's absence. Well, for that matter, Mila Kunis, but still. So as was done earlier, Samantha made progress getting in touch with Patrick, and, well, they are about to make their adventure to New York. That's where they're going to meet Patrick. He's present at New York. They're going to go from Boston, Massachusetts to New York, and just Samantha, Johnny, and Ted. Tammy staying behind. I mean, she could have joined, but I don't know. Just someone has to stay at the apartment, I guess, but I don't know. So thus they make their, they disembarked for, making their way to New York, and because, them on the road, and even when, like, say, there are a few times where we happen to see Donnie on their tail, and, like, moments between Johnny, Ted, and Samantha on the road, even when they hit, like, they stop at this restaurant, and, the fun that they have there, even when, like, say, they spot this one big fat guy who's a jerk, and throwing something between his butt crack is funny, but it turns out that he's a blind guy, and, like, pretending, like, Ted is the father, and, Johnny playing a kid is funny. And still, the mentionings, and that's what's brought up about Samantha being unaware of nerd culture, even, like, when, like, say, at one moment, there's one moment where a waitress, I guess, like, makes a move on Johnny, and Ted pointing out to Johnny that, she was giving him the F me eyes, and Samantha doesn't know what that is, and then she asks them, do I have F me eyes? But what they say is that she has the Gollum/Smeagol eyes. Like, not to sound rude, but it's true, kind of, because Amanda Seyfried, her eyes can really pop, but I'm just saying, because I'm sure, because Amanda finding that very humorous, and with how it was done in Ted 2, but just, and Samantha having no clue about Gollum and such, and when Gollum's brought up again later, but and by the way, because the waitress that, made a move on Johnny, gave, like, basically giving him the F me eyes, that was Lexi Atkins, and some of the other cast members to bring up, because, the blind guy, as he's credited, was Craig Rissy Shanak, if I'm saying that right, and also there was Boston newscaster, played by Lauren Sanchez, and Todd Kidder, being played by Jack Knight, and some of the other, Wedding Singer was Curtis Stigers, New York's, some of the characters that we see in New York, but moving on. But actually, coming back to you, Anchorman, because, when they disembark from Boston, Massachusetts to New York, and, like, say, when they they make their way to this restaurant, and with this blind guy, the waitress and such, like, what do you have to say this time?
The blind guy scene was hilarious, where they threw that thing at his crack.
Yep.
And then it put them off, and he can't even see them.
Yep. I mean, that saved them, for one thing, so...
Yeah.
The fact that he was blind. Okay, but yeah, and, also, because, yeah, when they leave the restaurant and, well, it's getting late, Ted offers to take the wheel, and, even assuring Samantha that he's got this, and, even though he doesn't have a license, still, and thus, yeah, Ted taking the wheel while Johnny and Samantha sleep through the evening, and obvious planes, trains, and automobiles reference, because the fact that we have, the Ray Charles song "Messin' Around" playing, because, yeah, with John Candy's character in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, dancing and such, and playing the saxophone while he's behind the wheel, while Steve Martin's character is sleeping in the passenger seat, yeah. Same thing for Ted, too, because, yeah, and Ted kind of, moving the car around, almost, dodging collisions with other vehicles. Even at one point, he texted Tammy, but then it gets out of hand when, yeah, he accidentally kind of burns himself with the cigar he was having, but, yeah, the cigarette. And then, yeah, this leads to Ted then starting to lose control of the car, making the car making its way to a farm, a barn, and, yeah, and Johnny and Samantha still being asleep all throughout that, and then when they wake up, so they're stuck there for the evening, and yeah, because them spending the night at this location where the barn is, up to when they find and discover that there's a whole field of weed, basically, and with the Jurassic Park theme being played, and fun fact, because another mentioning of the Ted 2 commentary, Seth MacFarlane stated that they got permission and wrote and got permission from, say, Spielberg and such, and, they were more than happy to allow, MacFarlane and the others to do that. Well, I mean, duh, because, both Ted and Jurassic Park, they're Universal Pictures property, so yeah. Not to mention that Ted 2 did come out just 1 week after Jurassic World, and apparently because Jurassic World beat them at the box office, and even, yeah, with what Seth and the others, what they said in the commentary, because, yeah, making a comment on that. Well, I mean, yeah, because, it's obvious, because, well, I mean, that was, at that time it was a big deal, because the first Jurassic Park film in a long time, well, the first film in the Jurassic Park franchise, and so on, but anyways, so yeah, that was pretty funny, and even, they move in herds. They do move in herds, and they're very emotional by this, but okay. And coming back to you, Anchorman, because anything on that from the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles reference, Ted behind the wheel, crashing in the barn, and with the whole Jurassic Park reference?
I liked the scene where Ted's driving the car. I thought that was hilarious, and he accidentally crashes into the barn. That was also hilarious, and then they don't even notice until they wake up from what Ted has done. And then when they do find the weed, it was wild that there's so much weed.
Yes. Yeah.
By the way, when I went to the drive-in theater, when Jurassic World came out, I didn't see Jurassic World there, but it was playing in the back, and also Ted 2 was playing in the back as well. I was kind of watching Ted 2 while I was at the drive-in theater, even though I wasn't allowed to watch it.
Wow, bro. That's something. Good for you. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's again, good on you. Just, yeah, you managed to succeed on seeing Ted 2 at a young age.
Yeah, it was only, I couldn't hear what was going on since I was watching Inside Out. That's what I saw at the drive-in, but I just turned around occasionally and saw Ted 2 was playing.
Okay. All right, so that's a nice story you brought up, but okay, so continuing on, because, yeah, after they discovered weed, and, yeah, they have a campfire, even, good lord, because, they have, another thing where they smoke pot, and it's basically, it resembles a penis, golly. But yeah, I mean, that's what they're using, so, go figure. And yeah, because, and with Johnny and Samantha, because still, the romance between Johnny and Samantha is still building up. And even when Ted, he actually walks off to find some, cans and, because he didn't find cans, but he found, say, a guitar, cowboy hat, and a rifle and such, and because when he shot off the rifle, it sent him flying, and it caused him to shoot his nose off. But when we see him again, yeah, his nose is back in position, like, it's, he's okay. But yeah, like, and the more talk that Johnny and Samantha have, and, even Johnny asking Samantha, like, why doesn't she have a guy in her life? And with what she specifically describes, even the mentioning of a specific tattoo, which just so happens, unbeknownst to Samantha, Johnny has, and, he tries to cover it with his sock. Rolling up his sock and such, yeah. Then Samantha starts to play the guitar, and, man, I gotta say, because this song number in Ted 2 is pretty good, actually. Mean Ol' Moon, which, yeah, Amanda Seyfried actually singing this, and there's like a bit of like a Disney vibe / moment where, yeah, animals start to approach, like, from a deer, a raccoon. Then it just gets silly, where like a fish jumps out of the river, or a lobster shows up, and a penguin just, okay, but hey, that makes it hilarious. But at the same time, it's a nice moment, with Amanda Seyfried singing, and with beautiful music that plays. Again, definitely for me, like, giving me, like, say, that vibe of, like, how music and singing were done, in, like, the 30s, 40s, 50s. You get my point. Just, yeah, with what Seth MacFarlane has done a good chunk of times, doing that, really awesome. And then right after she sings, that's when Samantha and Johnny, they make out. And Ted, he's happy for them. Yes, and just, yeah. But coming back to you, Anchorman, because anything on that sequence, and with, yeah, the song Mean Ol' Moon and such, yeah, what's your comment?
The Mean Ol' Moon song was really good. I think Amanda Seyfried's definitely an underrated singer.
Yeah, I'd say so too, yeah. And, yeah...
And the random song is funny.
What now?
I like how the animals that show up randomly, I thought that was funny.
Yeah. And what were we about to say?
He stares at the camera. I thought that was adorable.
Wait, who stares at the camera, you say?
Ted.
Oh, yeah, Ted, because, yeah, you were going to say something on Ted. Okay, there we go. And then the next...
Oh, and I forgot to say, I do like his scene where he pulls out the gun and he has that cowboy hat on. I thought that was hilarious.
And shooting, and like I said earlier, him accidentally shooting off his nose.
I wonder how he got it back on.
Well, he managed to succeed. It didn't take him that long because, managed to do that quickly. So, yeah, he succeeded. All right, but anyway, so by next morning, then Samantha and Johnny, they attached rope to the car, pulling it down from the barn. And, well, they succeed. At least the car's still in one piece. And Ted asks Samantha and Johnny, about, how to go, because of them kissing. Was there any fingering and such? And, one of them threw a guitar at him, because, that's none of your business, Ted. Yeah. So they're about to disembark. Then when, say, out of nowhere, these two guys, I presume, it's their property, and with the whole field of weed, they start to chase after them, and, yeah, by shooting them down and such. And I don't know, because... if it's just me, because I feel like I was kind of. I don't think this was really a reference to this, but my point being is that I kind of feel like that it was very similar. The small chase that we get, where they're being chased down by those two guys in this Jeep, and one guy is trying to shoot them down. It reminded me of, say, Back to the Future, where, yeah, the Libyans, they're chasing after Marty and the DeLorean, and one of the Libyans is using a gun. Just, I don't know, that's what it reminded me. I mean, for one thing, no Back to the Future music played during that, but still, and even with them going through the field of weeds, and actually they retrieve some weed, and God, that was funny. But eventually they lose those two guys, because the Jeep crashed / collided with an incoming vehicle, and then it led to say the vehicle exploding, and Samantha asked if they were okay, but yeah, when that vehicle exploded, Johnny and Ted were like, nope, they're good. They gave us a thumbs up, so, yeah. So, and anything to say on that, Anchorman, that small car chase sequence?
That scene was hilarious. I think it was cut from the theatrically released. It was just in the uncut version of the movie.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It was wild that they took all that weed. They just shove it all in the car. Take as many as they can.
Yeah.
Johnny even says, "Seize the day." Kind of reminds me of the line from the Dead Poets Society. I know that's completely unrelated to this movie, but "seize the day." I've always loved that phrase.
Mm-hmm. And that's probably, yeah, that, well, without a doubt, that was a reference, was it, did you say, you said Shawshank, right?
No, I said Dead Poets Society.
Oh, Dead Poets Society. Why did I think of Shawshank? I have no idea. Just, yeah. Bleh. I mean, me. Just, yeah. Wrong movie. Yeah, Dead Poets Society. You're right. And, yeah. But anyway, so, moving on. So, after all that, they do eventually make their way to New York City, and a classic song, New York, New York is playing, and it's pretty funny, because, like, when they arrive at New York, at one point, Ted, getting out, sticking out of the car window, hello, Jews, and everybody's waving, because, well, they're all Jews. And then at one point, they almost run over these 3 cosplayers who are cosplaying as Star Wars characters because, and this was mentioned earlier by, Tom from Hasbro, Comic-Con, because Comic-Con is officially happening in New York Comic-Con, and Samantha, at one point, yeah, Samantha thinking that these 3 guys cosplaying as Star Wars characters, referring to them as Star Trek, Captain Kirk, just, yeah. And the 3 cosplayers, because, yeah, one is a Stormtrooper, one is Darth Vader, and one is a Jedi. And by the way, they are credited because, yeah, Obi-Wan, the Obi-Wan cosplayer being played by Alec Sulkin, yeah, and the Stormtrooper being Ralph Garman, yeah. Well, Darth Vader, I mean, he doesn't have any, the Darth Vader cosplayer doesn't get any lines, but still, yeah, and to go ahead and mention some of the other cosplayers that we see, because there's one whom is cosplaying as a Borg from Star Trek. That was Dustin Ybarra, if I'm saying it right. And one whom was cosplaying as Hellboy, being Matthew J. Walters, and a few others here and there, just, yeah. But anyway, so with Comic-Con happening, yeah, because Johnny, Samantha, and Ted making their way to meet with whom they're going to see, and yeah, hopefully, because again, he can help and solve Ted's problem officially. And again, that being Patrick, and Patrick being played by good old Morgan Freeman, yes. It's pretty funny, because the first interactions they have with Patrick and such, and even, Johnny and Ted asking Patrick, well, yeah, it's Ted who asks Patrick if, bringing in any chicks to his office and such, is, yeah. But unfortunately, after all that time, that journey from Boston, Massachusetts to New York, Patrick, he's unable to help them. And Patrick making it very clear as to why. I mean, Patrick did look into everything of Ted and with his situation. It's just, the fact that Ted has not done anything really, and that would make him a citizen, and how he specifically puts at it. And not really doing anything and such, anything specifically that he, you get the point, of course, but, yeah. And yeah, it's unfortunate, because the fact that it seemed like maybe they had a good shot with Patrick, but yeah, and I mean, even Patrick didn't really say that he would help them. He would consider it, and he made up his mind. And officially, for a while in this movie, he's not able to help Ted. And that's unfortunate. And, well, it seems like that's the end, the end of the road, where, Ted, hoping that maybe he can be reinstated as a citizen and such. No, it's unfortunate. But at least, on the bright side, for Johnny, he met someone new. The fact that, whom would become their lawyer would eventually turn out to be a new love interest for Johnny. And Ted, he's very upset by this. In fact, just lets Johnny and Samantha have it because, they're happy, but not Ted, because his world has now crumbled and such. And, it's understandable with the pain that's going through Ted, but still. But, Ted was, despite what was going on with Ted did help out some with Johnny on trying to find someone new in his life, but still, with what was going on with Ted, that was really higher up, yeah. But again, it just gets out of hand, and Ted just, walking away and just, roaming through New York, up to when he finds himself at Comic-Con, where, yeah, to him, fitting right in with the crowd, and so on, because, he is a property, But, yeah, and coming back to Anchorman, because, yeah, when they finally meet with Patrick's unable to help them, and, yeah, Ted blowing up in Johnny and Samantha's faces, what do you have to say?
That scene was wild. I can understand why Ted was upset, because he was trying to get his human rights, but because he's not allowed, it makes him super pissed, and then he gets really mad when they kiss and stuff. It's understandable. But then he goes to Comic-Con. I thought the Comic-Con scene is probably my favorite of this movie. I did like the scene earlier with the Star Wars cosplayers. I like how they Sam gets it wrong, but then they said, "Hey, we're sorry. She just doesn't know." And they said, "Oh, I'm sorry for that." That you're with. I thought that the stormtrooper saying that was funny.
Yeah. Yeah, and even, the Vader cosplayer trying to use the Force, and, they tell him that, it's not worth it, and, that's gonna work, using the Force on the car, but yeah, Comic-Con in Ted 2, because like you said, yeah, really good, and yeah, I enjoyed it too, and yeah, looking at the behind the scenes of Comic-Con, and what was put into bringing Comic-Con to life in Ted 2, it's amazing, because, the fact that many of those, from, say, Mattel or anything like that, they participated having their properties be put in Ted 2 for display for this Comic-Con that's in Ted 2, it's amazing. And even, I seem to recall, because, yeah, with more of the behind the scenes, actual cosplayers, yeah, participating in being in the sequence of Comic-Con, and even some of them wearing their very own cosplays, but some of them getting to wear special cosplays and such, yeah, for Ted 2. It was really cool, because, yeah, with what was put in to bring New York Comic-Con to life in this movie was fun, really cool, and seeing all the cosplayers getting all prepped up and such to film their shots for Ted 2, and what more I have to say? That was really cool. And yeah, because continuing with the movie, because coming back to you, Anchorman, is there anything else you've got to say about with Comic-Con and Ted 2?
I was actually watching the special features of Ted 2 on the Blu-ray I have, and there was Stephen Fry actually said in the special features that a lot went down to make the Comic-Con scene, the way they built the set took a lot of time, and they actually encouraged the extras to actually bring in their own costumes, so they wouldn't have to pay so many extras just for having a costume. And I even saw them put on the makeup, which I thought was really nice.
Yeah.
And what went down just to make this entire scene happen. And they even called various brands just to have them in the background of the set. And then when we saw the set actually happen, it actually looks like a Comic-Con I would go to.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the word I was looking for. Brands, right. Yeah, thank you. But yeah, but continuing with Ted 2, because yeah, Ted making his way to Comic-Con, and he just so happens to run into Guy and Rick, and brilliant because yeah, Guy is dressed up as the Tick, and Rick is dressed up as Worf, And the fact that, well, Warburton and Dorn have played those characters, and they are, it's like, they're dressed up as, cheap, like, those, like, because they look like cosplayers cosplaying as those characters. Nothing fancy or anything. That's just so funny. Yeah, because with the headpiece of Worf that Michael Dorn has, not in that much detail, and the way that Warburton's Tick costume looks in this, it's just so funny. And the reason that they're there, and when, they run into Ted, because they're mainly there to, F around with the nerds and, just to bully them and so on. Like, giving them wedgies or spilling their trays of, refreshments and so on. Just, it's pretty funny, yeah. And anything to say on that, Anchorman? Because with Guy and Rick, their presence at Comic-Con?
I like his Tick costumes. I don't know, didn't Patrick Warburton play the Tick?
He did, yeah. Because
it was a nice reference.
Yeah, and I don't mean to cut you off, because that it is true. Because I don't know, because I guess this, I know this definitely goes for you, Anchorman, and maybe for a good majority of you guys. But Patrick Warburton himself did portray the Tick in a live-action Tick show that sadly only lasted for one season, but at the same time, it did very well. So the live-action Tick series, that was in the early 2000s, and very underrated, of course, obviously, and it's just so funny and awesome that, because we have Patrick Warburton, in this Tick costume, and it's funny. And as I said about Michael Dorn, him and Ted 2 cosplaying as Worf, just, brilliance, But, so, anything else you've got to say?
It was like a sort of reunion to play the Tick again.
Mm-hmm. And same goes for Michael Dorn as Worf, and and the whole thing of them just, like, effing around with the nerds and just bullying them and such, like, anything on that?
It was funny the way he knocked down the Spider-Man's cosplayers.
Yes, yeah. And again, like, giving this one guy a wedgie and, damn it, that underwear had shit on it. Well, go wash your hands, or even, like, say, like, a guy, calling someone Steve Urkel. That was funny. But, so, with Guy and Rick being present, then there's one moment, and actually, this being in the unrated version, because, of course, wanting to talk about what's in the unrated version, as, we have been, throughout this review, well, then there's a sequence where Ted walks his way at a panel where David Hasselhoff is in, along with Kit, the car from Knight Rider. Yes, it's basically like a Knight Rider panel, and, Ted walked in where, people were asking Hasselhoff and Kit questions, and that was a pretty funny sequence, in fact, because, Kit, whom actually is voiced by Seth MacFarlane in this, it would have been nice if maybe they could have gotten the original voice actor for Kit, but, I don't know, maybe if he would have wanted to do it, I don't know, or maybe he was, there's numerous of guesses, or if it is official. If some of you happen to know this, feel free to let me know in the comments section, but just, Seth MacFarlane, he was pretty funny voicing Kit in this, and because, well, Kit being alive and making comments like what life was like for poor Kit. But, David Hasselhoff helping out Kit with his troubles and such, and, just even like when Kit gets emotional, literally, the liquid, and such, like, it shoots out in the wipers, like, that makes sense, but at the same time, it's funny. And Ted asking them a question and such, and what he specifically said, and this pisses off Kit, and, it tells Ted to, screw off and such, and Hasselhoff's trying to keep it together and just, telling Kit that, it's not worth it, to pick on Ted and such. Just, yeah. But do you have anything to say on that sequence, Anchorman, that's in the unrated cut with the Knight Rider panel with Kit and David Hasselhoff?
I thought the David Hasselhoff cameo was funny. I even watched the special features on David Hasselhoff's, what he had to do on the set for his small little cameo. And the talking car was funny.
Yeah, again, the car's name from Knight Rider is Kit, so just so you know. But yeah, that was pretty funny. And right after that, then Ted comes face-to-face with this one cosplayer whom is cosplaying as one of the Ninja Turtles, Raphael. And the Raphael cosplayer is wanting to take a picture with Ted because the Raphael cosplayer is familiar with Ted and such. And, having Ted come with him at this, this one room, just out, away from the crowd. And, the Raphael cosplayer revealing himself to be Donnie. And yes, because more on Donnie, because still, he was on their tail throughout this. And yeah, up to when Ted, being by himself, making his way to Comic-Con. So yeah, and Ted and Donnie reuniting, and because, Ted want nothing to do with Donnie, and with what Donnie says to Ted, what he's planning to do on Ted, and Ted making a run for it. Eventually, Donnie manages to capture and knock out Ted when, one moment where there's this, stack of, Ted plushes, and, one of them, of course, has to be Ted, and, Donnie, bringing up this song, which being Sweet Caroline, bump, 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 that's what triggers Ted, and thus, Donnie managing to capture Ted, knocking him out, but he still has to pay for Ted, and then when, Donnie meets with, Tom, because Tom is, right now, doing this, panel for Hasbro with, what's coming up from Hasbro, Transformers figures and so on, Also, coming back to Johnny and Samantha, they were trying to look for Ted, but when Ted was being chased after by Donnie, Ted managed to snatch Donnie's phone and call up Johnny to inform him and / alert him what was going on and that he's at Comic-Con. Donnie is there, and thus Johnny and Samantha making their way to Comic-Con. Because, when Johnny and Samantha make their way, and, because, when Ted was captured, Guy and Rick did notice Ted being carried off, and if only they knew. There's no doubt that, they would have helped out Ted, because, he's their friend, of course. But, Donnie pretending, saying that, Ted had too much, and just, Then when, Johnny and Samantha run into, Guy and Rick, it's pretty funny even when Rick recognizing John, did you get a nose job? Yes, you effing liar. You got a nose job. It's funny. And they tell Johnny and Samantha where they last saw Ted. And And then, a moment where Johnny and Samantha happen to run into, this panel where apparently the next actor to portray Superman is being announced. And it's Jonah Hill. And Johnny just saying, shouting out the F-bomb. And Samantha, was like, who's Superman? No, I'm just messing with you. I'm on the same page with you. So she knows Superman. Okay, but just... Okay, now coming back to you, Anchorman, because we're up to now with what happens further at Comic-Con. What do you have to say this time?
I like Donnie's Raphael costume. It was funny.
Mm-hmm.
It actually looks like what they look like in the live-action movie.
Yeah, I mean, it is supposed to, so... And also, the whole, and do you think that probably, if only Guy and Rick had known what was actually going on with Ted, that they probably would have helped out Ted?
Yeah, they probably would have.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, why wouldn't they? And, also, anything to say, because, when Rick made, a comment to Johnny on, if, wondering if, he had gotten a nose job.
Oh, funny.
Yeah. And the Superman announcement, what about that?
Oh, it was funny that Johnny yelled the F-bomb. It'd be weird if they casted Jonah Hill as Superman. He did play Green Lantern in the Lego movie with Channing Tatum as Superman, so it kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah, and well, and the fact that Jonah Hill technically, played someone with superpowers in, well, Megamind, who was considered to be a superhero, but then became a villain. So, yeah. So Jonah Hill did that as well, something else superhero related. Even though, yeah, because, with what he did as the Green Lantern and What's-His-Face in Megamind, both of them were, well, in the realm of animation, but still, yeah. But just, yeah, could you imagine that? Like, Jonah Hill as Superman? Golly. They're probably out there online, because fan pics or something where you have Jonah Hill as Superman, without a doubt. But moving on, because, yeah, eventually Johnny and Samantha, because when they do find Ted, and yeah, because, again, Donnie, what he's planning to do, yeah, and, like, what you also brought up, Anchorman, early on, because planning to cut Ted in half, and what they were going to do, and because, of the plan of Mattel selling these Ted plushes, and they had to use Ted, and just, yeah, and golly, because, Ted, trying to find a way to reach out to Donnie and, like, convince him and such, like, even, like, one thing he brings up to Donnie is, like, I'll give you a hand job while you eat ice cream. Good Lord. And even Tom is, like, saying to them, I'll give you a few moments. I'll give you a few minutes and such as, golly. But overall, Johnny and Samantha, they find where Ted is in peril, and, yeah, confronting Donnie, and, well, Tom, he now wants no part of it anymore. Yeah, the business between him and Donnie is over. Yeah, even when, like, Samantha asks who he is, and, I'm the guy who runs Mattel. And, yeah, he just walks off. That's the end of him. Yeah. Good for him, because, he doesn't even need to be a part of this, and dealing with a crazy guy like Donnie. So, yeah, bad idea. Just go back and do your business with Mattel the way it is. Just, yeah. But, yeah, and Donnie, saying to Johnny, you don't deserve Ted, but, rightfully so, and Johnny had been wanting to do this for a long time, punching Donnie in the face and even knocking off his wig/toupee. Well, not really, it's just a wig, because, yeah, that's the thing. We know that from the first movie, Donnie didn't have hair, but he technically does in this, but yeah, clearly it's a wig. So yeah, knocking off Donnie's wig, and thus Ted is rescued, and well, they make their merry way, and roaming through Comic-Con some more, and Ted taking the time to apologize to Johnny and Samantha for what happened when, yeah, he got fed up with them, but no apology is necessary. But for Donnie, well, he's not finished. And actually, God, because early on, can't forget to mention this too, because while Johnny and Samantha were trying to look for Ted, they, Johnny and Samantha, they happened to walk by Sam Jones, whom is at Comic-Con, cosplaying as, well, Flash Gordon. He's in the Flash Gordon getup, I should say. Not cosplaying, just wearing his Flash Gordon wardrobe. Sam noticing him, and yeah, because he knew that Johnny was the one that, broke his car, breaking one of the windows. I mean, I'm sure because, I don't know, because when watching the movie, I'd like to think that, did Sam really figure out that it was Johnny? But, of course, it was an accident, what Johnny did. But, yeah, overall, he found out, and, yeah, then, say, Sam going after Johnny, and then this starts a brawl between all these other cosplayers, and, yeah, from, say, Captain Kirk, Picard, Leela from, Leeloo from The Fifth Element, there's a Dalek, there's, the Gorn, I think the creature from the Black Lagoon, yeah, and Doc Brown, Marty McFly, just, yeah, all these cosplayers getting into a brawl, even, Guy and Rick, they're enjoying this, but then, some of the nerds that were bullied by Guy and Rick, yeah, they get the revenge on them, just, yeah, that sequence was pretty funny, even when, say, Samantha comes face-to-face with this Gollum cosplayer, and... But coming back to you, Anchorman, because, yeah, that sequence with the cosplaying brawl, and that started with Johnny and Sam, yeah, anything to say on that?
That sequence was funny, where Sam gets pissed at Johnny after he says, F your Chrysler.
Yes, thank you, yeah, for bringing that line up.
I didn't get to say, but I did like the chase sequence with Ted and Donnie, and Ted hides into the other bears and does the Sweet Caroline. I thought that scene was hilarious.
Yep, that was. And now that you bring up Donnie, because where we are, because forgot to mention the whole cosplaying brawl sequence, Donnie, well, he's not finished quite yet, and taking one last revenge on Ted, where he cuts off a rope that is attached to this giant Enterprise D, and it's going to make its way to Ted, but Johnny's seen this and pushes Ted out of the way and taking the hit of the Enterprise D. And fun fact about the Enterprise D, that giant, statue of the Enterprise D, that was actually directly taken from a tiny miniature of the Enterprise D that Seth MacFarlane has. They just copied it, and they made it big and large, and being put on display for the Comic-Con set of Ted 2. That was really cool, and, well, of course, that being in the bonus features, so that was awesome. And besides, Star Trek The Next Generation being one of Seth MacFarlane's favorite pieces of Star Trek material. Yeah, and obviously, the Enterprise D would be MacFarlane's favorite Enterprise. Yeah. So, with the Enterprise D having hit Johnny, it sends him flying and, crashing into a few things, and and Samantha not knowing that it's the Enterprise D and calling it a spaceship, and Ted correcting her, and, the two security guys coming up, and, Ted telling them to call up an ambulance, and, who did this? Well, Ted pointing out that it was one of the Ninja Turtle cosplayers, and, well, which one is it? Because we have these group of Ninja Turtle cosplayers right there. One way to find out, well, Ted playing the specific song where, this causes Donnie, still in the Raphael cosplay, to dance to it, and that's the guy. So thus, the two security guards, which, being played by Johnny Alves and Silvio Cadra, if I'm saying that right, they take in Donnie, and that's the end of Donnie right there. So, and by the way, because some of the other cast members to point out, because there were these two cops in Boston, played by Lenny Clark and Chris Neville, and also Patrick's assistant. When they're about to meet Patrick, his assistant comes in to tell them that, Patrick's ready to see them. That was MacFarlane's sister, Rachel. Yeah, of course I recognized Rachel, and because seeing Seth's sister in some of his projects, well, most notably being the voice of Haley Smith in American Dad. Even having done the computer voice on the Orville. So and also some of the other cast members do bring up a nerd who got the wedgie from Guy was Joseph Masucci, if I'm saying that right, and Comic-Con fan being played by Josiah Blount and a few others, but just, So, Donnie's taken in, and Johnny, well, he's very wounded. And what happens next is Johnny is taken to this hospital in New York, and, the New York City doctor being played by Julius Sharp, when it seems like Johnny is not doing good, in fact, his pulse and such on the monitors, and, they have to, help out with Johnny. Well, later on, the New York doctor informs them that Johnny didn't make it. Wow, really? Really? Because, man, that must have been a hard hit for Johnny, and because a bit of a sad moment where, Ted and Tammy, who was there, and Samantha, they say their goodbyes to Johnny, and especially Ted, and Ted getting very emotional because his life being empty without Johnny and what he says. But Johnny fooled them. He scares them, and this is payback because and because keep in mind, because at times throughout Ted 2, from Johnny and Ted, pulling jokes on each other and, because doing mean jokes on them, just, yeah. And with what Johnny does this time, just, yeah. And Samantha just, like, freaking out because in the fact that, she's upset with Johnny, because he played dead. And even, like, yeah, those at the New York hospital were in on this. Yeah, from the New York doctor and the New York nurse, and the New York nurse being played by Liz Morgan. Yeah, because they were all in on this, and even the doctor saying, happy to help. We're a fun hospital. And Samantha telling Johnny, because I put a frown face on Facebook. How am I going to explain that? And Johnny suggesting to her that maybe she should change her relationship status to single to complicated and, say that she's dating someone else. Just, yeah. But overall, managing to work things out. And, yeah. But coming back to you, Anchorman, because we're up to now, because with what happens to Johnny, he sacrificed himself to save Ted, what happens in the hospital, etc. What do you got to say?
Before I say anything, the funniest sequence was when Ted is captured by Donnie. He says, like, you're not a person, Ted, and then Ted says, so is that hairpiece, and then it's revealed to be a wig. I thought that was funny.
Yes.
But the scene with, like, the Ninja Turtles and Ted having to guess who it is after Johnny gets hit, I thought it was cool. We saw all the Ninja Turtles. That's the one sequence I remember the most from this movie was those Ninja Turtle cosplayers. Mm-hmm. And then, like, when Ted plays the song, I think we're alone now, just like in the first movie. I thought that was hilarious. But, yep. Yeah, Johnny not surviving was wild. I almost thought he was going to die in the movie, but I remember seeing in the background when I was at the driving theater that Johnny did survive. So, yeah, so yeah. I don't know how. Did they explain how he survived?
Well, I think it's obvious that, the aftermath of taking that hard hit from the Enterprise and that sent him flying, thankfully, it wasn't anything severe. So, yeah, so, mm-hmm. But, yeah, so with that, and, yeah, and surprisingly, well, Patrick showing up, and him being aware of what just happened, and with what Johnny did, sacrificing himself for Ted, right there, that gives a sign where, yeah, a really good chance that Ted will be able to have the citizenship and, rights as a human and such, but, I mean, not really a human, but still, and how, and how'd you put out again, Anchorman?
For what?
The human, is it human rights? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's like human rights.
Yeah, even though Ted's not a human, still, like, being treated as an actual person, so even though he's a teddy bear. But, yeah, so, again, overall, point being, with what Johnny did, sacrificing himself for Ted, yes, because that's where Patrick is now going to help out Ted, and thus, when it comes to another court hearing, and Patrick's right there, and the speech that he makes, just overall, in the end, Ted won. They won. Now Ted will be treated as a citizen and have all the stuff that was taken from him be brought back to him. And, well, what Ted's going to do next, even when one of the, news reporters asks Ted what he's going to do next, well, he gets down on one knee and proposes to Tammy. Yeah, so they're getting married once again. And after that, well, the aftermath still, and with the epilogue, well, and with getting one more bit of narration from Patrick Stewart, well, Ted and Tammy, they finally and managed to adopt a baby. And, yep, and them naming their baby, and, well, this makes, Johnny an uncle, and, even, like, Johnny giving them a gift of a teddy bear of their child's own, and maybe possibly that teddy bear could come to life as well. Yeah. But then, yeah, it's time for diaper duty, to change the baby's diaper. And, like, we don't see it on screen. Obviously, we don't need to, but yeah, like, Ted finding it so gross with the, like with what the baby made in his diaper, and like Johnny stepping in, and golly, because Ted passing the diaper to Johnny and it spills on him, and oh my god, and then Ted taking a picture and posting it on social media, just what a hilarious way to end off Ted 2 right there. Yeah. Okay, but coming back to you, Anchorman, because the ending to Ted 2, what say you?
I thought Morgan Freeman's speech at the court was really good.
Mm-hmm.
I even liked the scene where John tricks Ted into thinking he was dead.
Mm-hmm.
But, and then the scene where John tells Morgan Freeman to go F himself, I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
But, after Ted gets his rights, I did like how it comes to a happy ending and Ted finally has his kid. And the ending with the poop splattering all over Johnny was hilarious. It ends on a high note.
Yes, it does. Yep. And by the way, because of the fact that Ted won, well, because that marked the first time for Shep Wild that, he lost a court case, because, as the movie established early on, he never did, but until now. Also, I can't forget to mention this too, because there was one moment where, at the court, early on, well, Ted suggested to Johnny about summoning Beetlejuice 3 times. Like, okay, first off, that's not really going to happen, but to Johnny it is. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention that because that was pretty funny. Almost forgot about it, but yeah. But yeah, ending off on a high note, like you said, Anchorman, just this, how Ted 2 ends did not disappoint. Yeah. Oh, and one more thing that we cannot forget to mention, and a good thing too, because there is an end credit scene in Ted 2, because of course, with how the film ends off, hilarious and such, well, and a high note, as you said, Anchorman, but also, this also ends off on a high note, where, Liam Neeson, where he's the customer, we see him again, and because he had purchased and bought the a box of Trix cereal, well, apparently he got beat up, and he returns it, and disgusted. Like, he's all beat up and bruised and bloody lipped, that too was a hilarious way to end it off. And what say you, Anchorman?
That scene was funny.
Uh-huh. And don't you think so too? Because, it did end off on... No, go ahead.
Yeah, I thought his cameo at the end was funny, just seeing him get beat up, and then he realizes tricks are not for adults, just for kids.
Apparently not, in the world of Ted. And because they brought that joke back, and finishing it off where it started off where he bought the Trix hoping that he wouldn't be followed or anything like that, and he apparently did. So that was a great way to end it off with that end credit scene, and don't you think so too? Because it still ended off on a high note with that end credit scene.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just with how the film ends, before the credits and after the credits with, seeing Liam Neeson one more time, just really good. Yeah, just Ted 2, again, it may not be the best and, cannot top off the first Ted film, but that's not to say it's bad in any way. For what Ted 2 has to offer with its storyline is not bad at all. I like where it goes, and because with what happens to poor Ted... but eventually, in the end, he manages to succeed, and a true happy ending right there. And even for Johnny, getting a new girl and such. Just, from the story, the cast of characters, new faces that step in from, say, Amanda Seyfried, Morgan Freeman, Michael Dorn, and, David Hasselhoff and everybody else that, made appearances in Ted 2, Jay Leno, and the stuff that's in the unrated cut are pretty funny, too. The music and score, the hilarious/funny moments, the jokes, the references, the emotional moments, just everything in Ted 2, even Mean Old Moon, that was a good song. Just, again, everything about Ted 2 I enjoyed. Again, I don't know, because, like I said, I think I enjoyed Ted 2 more than the first one, but again, I did enjoy the first one. Just, bear with me and with what I'm saying. Alright, but coming back to you, Anchorman, your final thoughts and results on Ted 2.
Yeah, I really like Ted too. I still don't understand the hate for it. I think people just are probably tired of Seth MacFarlane. That's probably why I think they hated the movie. And Family Guy. If you're like not a Family Guy fan, and you're probably not gonna like this movie, but I sure love Ted 2.
Yeah, okay. Is there anything else to say on Ted 2?
I don't think so. I think I enjoyed it overall. It's a great underrated sequel.
Yeah, you're right. I would say
First
so.
time. I'd just like to also say this.
Okay.
Since Johnny and Ted are big Star Wars fans, it's wild that this movie came out before the Star Wars sequels came out. So I'm wondering, what would Ted think of the Star Wars sequels if they came out? I don't know.
Well, I mean that goes for both Ted and Johnny, how they would feel. So.
Yeah.
And besides, Ted 2 coming out, that same year, but early before The Force Awakens came out.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, overall, that's a good question. How would they feel about the sequel trilogy?
They did do a Ted versus Darth Vader, and we do see Ted read the newspaper complaining about The Force Awakens being highly praised at the time.
It was.
I think Azers, who's the new voice of the Cleveland Brown, he also does his impressions of Ted for that video.
Okay, nice. Okay. And is that all you've got to say, or are you finished with your final thoughts and results of Ted 2?
I think so.
Okay, yeah, the same goes for me, of course. Yeah, so now that we've finished with our final thoughts and results of Ted 2, how we rate Ted 2. We'll start with you, Anchorman. How do you rate it?
I think on my channel I gave it like an 8 or a 9 out of 10.
Okay. Yeah, the same goes for me. Yeah, this sounds about right too. Yeah. For me, I'm giving Ted 2, 8 out of 10 stars. Yes, 8 out of 10 stars. And the same goes for you too, 8 out of 10?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, so for both me and Anchorman, we give Ted 2 8 out of 10 stars. Yeah, because, we enjoyed Ted 2, and I'm sure, the same goes for a good majority of you. And yes, that leads me to this, as always. What about you guys? What did you think of Ted 2 itself? Any of you, by any chance, that got to experience and see this in theaters, or when it came out, say, on digital, DVD, Blu-ray, and, obviously, any of you that have seen Ted 2, you've seen the first Ted film, and what do you think? Because do you think that it's not that bad? And, well, surely, because it cannot top off the first Ted film, just still. Are you on the same page as me and Anchorman? What are some of your favorite moments from Ted 2? And with the new faces that step in from, say, Amanda Seyfried, Michael Dorn, Morgan Freeman, and with some new cameos here and there, the hilarious/funny moments, the emotional moments, what's going on in the storyline, and overall, what do you think of Ted 2 itself, and with what me and Anchorman had to say, our review, and what did you think of our review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. We hope you guys enjoyed our review of Ted 2. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and we will see you guys in the next video /review. And, well, there's one more film sequel left for me to review. And, yeah, of course, it'll just be me. So stay tuned later tonight, because the last film sequel that I'll be reviewing, a part of, Sequel Movie Week, well, to best describe it, it's another film straight from Universal Pictures, although it is DreamWorks. And, well, let's just say we return to the Isle of Berk, and our beloved characters from the Isle of Berk find themselves with a hidden world. You obviously know what it is, but yeah. Again, stay tuned for that. And yeah, Anchorman, it was great to have you, be a part of this. Once again, yeah, reviewing something Ted and, something Seth MacFarlane. Just, yeah.
Thank you for having me on.
Anytime, bro. Anytime. Yes. So yeah, then any last words? Say goodbye.
Farewell.
He says that, and for me, again, thank you very much for watching. Take care. Happy anniversary to Ted 2, and until me and Anchorman review the Ted series and, other Seth MacFarlane materials, peace out.